Meeting to order for the Beaufort County Legislative Committee. And if you will join me uh, in a pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, justice for all. Thank you. The next thing we'd like to do is if we could get a motion for approval of the agenda. Ms. Hay or Mr. Pastor Gordon?
So moved.
Oh, Pastor Gordon, will you second? Okay, I will second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, Pastor Gordon passes. All right, at this point, I'd like to read the guidelines for the meeting. This is the meeting of the Beaufort County Board of Education Legislative Committee, February 26, 2025, held at the District Educational Services Center, Conference Room E. Remote hybrid conferencing meeting is in place, and this will be broadcast by the county channel. To speak during the Legislative Committee public comments, please sign up using the public comment form. You can find the Board of Education public comment form on our website, https://board-of/ed/public-comments. If doing so, you will receive a phone call during the public comments where you will be able to speak and address the committee for a maximum of 3 minutes on issues within the committee's domain. The forum will be limited to 15 minutes. Citizens desiring to participate in person must fill out a public comment card that can be obtained from the board clerk upon arrival. Actually, they'll be able to call in for that. All right. Are there any public comments?
No, sir.
No public comments?
Somebody just joined by iPhone. If you can identify yourself.
Hey, it's Ingrid. I'm sorry. I'll be with you guys in just a sec.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Boatwright. Okay. So moving into, I've been asked, what is the intent of the meeting today? The last meeting and this meeting is really conversations about how we would like to move forward. And we have included in the agenda an overall theme that we want this legislative committee to be very forward-thinking, outward-looking, and we've come up with an acronym of SDDD. And as we discussed last time, the SDDD talks about proactive search. The first D is discover. Third D is discuss. And then, of course, all of that needs to be succeeded by deciding on next action steps for key issues affecting the district and public education. And so that becomes our overall theme. We want to ensure that legislative, judicial actions, etc., that affect district or public education in general, that we are vigilant and that we can develop a response. And then secondarily, we also want to be able to develop proactive recommendations, legislation, etc., that will help support public education. So I'll read through this and then we can go through and have a discussion about it. One of the second things is on number one, you'll see on the legislative committee, the chair, Colonel Geyer, has asked all board members to actually be very active in going out into the community and participating in city council meetings, county council, town meetings, where there are gathering of elected officials and citizens who will have a perception of us. It's very important that, as the Colonel has requested, that we are showing up at meetings, participating in a positive manner. Doesn't mean we don't have things that might be critical of, but expressing them in a way that does not create more opposition than support. So that's one of the first things we'll discuss today. And then the Colonel is here, so he can talk about his request to board members to attend those type meetings. The next thing is, there's already been an effort, and the Colonel has provided some insights on media subscriptions. Really going to ask everyone to actually go through and look at where should we be looking to find out what's on the horizon, what's in play, and the impact of anything that have already been passed. The Colonel has provided a new structure for membership participation in organizations that are charitable, have wide community support, Rotary, Lions, Kiwanis, charitable organizations, the community foundations of the area, those types of organizations that are really sort of giving back because they have people who are very influential and yet they really care about the overall good. So that's a third thing. And then the last point for discussion is, if you can see this, it is the 2024 South Carolina Legislative Manual. And it was provided to each of the board members upon being sworn in. And it is critically important. It is chock full of information. And one of the things is we really want to be better prepared in terms of engaging others than anyone who may have a different opinion. And always, again, handling ourselves in a very professional manner. So with that, I'm going to ask if Colonel Guy, would you like to speak about some of the items that you've already identified? Lead us off.
Well, first I want to start kind of with the macro view, and that you have a responsibility to be aware of legislative actions, executive actions at three levels of government. We need to be very attuned to what's going on in the federal level, specifically about what happens if the Department of Education goes away. And if that happens, then the state will have more powers. State will have more powers, and that's one thing. Then in the state, obviously, there's an awful lot of desires to look to be more efficient. There's desires to combine districts. There's desires to raise salaries across the state. And there's huge differences in the revenue streams and the revenue structure of the relatively wealthy districts and the vast majority of the poor rural districts. And of course, those rural districts far outnumber us, and their legislatures far outnumber our legislators. And so that means that we have to be a little more, we have to have allies. We need to have the rich counties come together and have a common view of how funding is taken care of, and how what we basically need is to stay out of our business and do not put restrictions on us and how we provide millage information to local auditors. That's like the fiscal autonomy is a big thing. We need to know what the state's looking at as far as increasing support to charter schools, private schools, and what that means to us. And we have to realize that we are in a educational competition. We are competing against these private and charter schools. And I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem competing with them as long as there is a level playing field. And if the state's going to give money to private schools, then those schools have to take the same kinds of tests that we do. If they're going to allow private schools and charter schools to have 25% of their teachers be non-certified, we have to have that same authority. We have to be in the local arena. We have to look back at, quite frankly, a failure. And the failure happened in the town of Bluffton. And it happened over probably starting 20, 25 years ago. That the district did not get involved early on with the city and the developmental process that went on there. And as a result of that, this district has been catching up with development. And by catching up, we were not able to put schools in the right places. And if you look at the attendance zones in the Bluffton area, it's a disaster. And we have buses crossing, we have people that are supposed to go to a school that's 5 miles away, yet they pass a school that's 2 miles away to get to that 5 mile school. We're going to have to sort that out someday. But still, even then, when you look at it and you see 2 middle schools and a K-8 school in Bluffton within a 5 mile radius, you know it's not organized correctly. And so we're going to have to undo that. But we also have to realize that growth in the Bluffton area does have an end point. And that end point, I don't know when it's going to be. I can tell you that when I came on the board, we had a demographic study by an outfit that's supposedly nationally known, who said that the growth in Bluffton would quit in 2021. And that obviously did not happen, and it was not correct. But it's going to stop at some time, and then internally we're going to have to rework all the attendance zones, and that's going to be a very difficult process. However, it's still snowing up north. The weather is still bad. South Carolina is now currently the highest growth state in the nation. That's not likely to change. And where are they going to come? Well, they're going to go to the Greenville area, and they're going to come to the Low Country. And when you look at where they're going to come in Beaufort County, they're restricted by water and sewage. There is no sewage lines out to St. Helena Island and Fripp and to Dataw. Dataw has their own, but there's no sewage lines out there, which means you cannot have higher density properties out there. There's no sewage going north of the Whale Branch, which means there's not going to be any high density housing there. There is sewage in the Burton area, and that the Burton area is from the west of 170 from the Broad River all the way up to the Whale Branch. And that is where growth is going to happen. But yet, having spent a couple days at the strategy meeting with the city of Beaufort, they are not concerned about that growth. I asked them, are you going to put Robert Smalls and annex Robert Smalls into city of Beaufort? You realize that Walmart, which is right across the way from Robert Smalls, is inside the city of Beaufort. And so is the shopping center across the way. The former mayor, Stephen Murray, told me, yes, he wanted to do that. I talked to the current mayor, and he was uncertain that they'd even been started or thought about. I said, well, you know, we don't have a problem with the sheriff that's out there, SRO, but we really like having the Beaufort police because of the rapid response we get from the Beaufort police vice the sheriff in boundaries near the boundary of Beaufort and the county. So we're going to have to be a voice in some of these meetings and so on. Say, hey, wait a minute, have you thought about? And we need the planning stuff happens in the planning departments even before the city council, the county council knows what's going on. I mean, they'll say, I've got a developer that's looking at it, but they don't get into the details until they're at the drawing process. And when they're at the drawing process, it's very difficult to say, wait a minute, where's the schools going to go? So it's really, really important that we are upfront in our knowledge. And that's why being a part of these different social organizations, that's when you hear the rumors. That's when I heard the first time there was going to be a shopping center put in up there, that Publix was coming up there. I knew that before it was in the paper for 3 or 4 years because I heard it in a club, at a barber shop. Then it's in the paper. And so we have to be appraised of that. And you could say, well, isn't that the district staff's job? They're responsible for communications of the current status of what's going on. What we're talking about is political. It's political. And so as people that are in the fringes of the political world, we have got to reach out and got to be informed and got to teach the folks about this. Now, let me give you another example. We have a building on King Street in Beaufort. It's the adult education building. That adult education building is an older building. It's not properly placed in the county because we have adult education students south of the Broad that have to come all the way north of the Broad. We have capacity in our high schools that can be filled. And most of this adult education happens in the evening. And there's a process they're looking at a process. The administration is looking at having adult education in 2 places, one north of the Broad, one south of the Broad. That building on King Street is it's in a prime location, centralized location in the city. I mentioned to the mayor, would you guys be interested in that? Oh yeah, you want to give it to us? I said, no. But I don't know if you know this. Some of you have been here for a long time. In 2005, the city of Beaufort annexed the McClendon plantation, which the McClendon plantation is up there by Grays Hill. If you go down Grays Hill, out to the Grays Hill boat landing, you go out, that's quite a ways. That's well north of the air station. And you'll see fire hydrants alongside the road. That means they put water in there. And a big development was going to come in, and the city jumped on it and annexed it over, frankly, over the, a lot of people in the city of Beaufort didn't want them to do that. Pat Conroy led the charge about how you're going outside the lane. So, but the city of Beaufort also purchased land out there for a commerce center to put small businesses out there. They've got some out there, but they've got land in that area that is really doing nothing right now. So, for example, and why we should get involved, and I didn't mention this to the mayor. I talked to Dr. Rodriguez. I'm going to take him out there and show him the property. But that's the kind of thing where we could say to the mayor, look, selling property, district property is difficult. There's a state law, got to offer it to charter schools, you got to offer it to this and that thing. But swapping property is easy. And so if we appraise that adult ed center, had it appraised, and it'll appraise a pretty high amount of money just because of where it's at and the amount of square footage that it's in. And said, okay, that's worth $4 million. How about looking at $4 million worth of property up north there by Grays Hill, which is where we're going to grow. Beaufort County is not going to grow into Ladies Island as fast as it is into the Burton area. And I'll tell you why. Because Ladies Island and St. Helena Island have only 2 bridges to get off those 2 islands. And they're already concerned that they won't be able to get people from Dataw, from Harbor, Ladies Island over the Beaufort River and get them off for getting away from a hurricane. Not in Burton, there's not a problem. The only bridge you got to get over is either the Broad River Bridge or the Tubman Bridge over the Whale Branch. So that's why it's going to happen there first before Ladies Island. So is it going to be 5 years, 10 years? I think it's between 5 and 10 years that you've already start seeing new housing developments being planned across the street from Battery Creek High School. You have all the apartment buildings that are the one behind Robert Smalls and the one that's going to be put in front of Robert Smalls. Those are already approved. So this is the kind of thing a legislative committee who's in touch with local politicians. And let me give you just an example today. Yesterday, I gave each city council member a copy of the brand new master plan. I gave it to the city council member. I gave it to the county, the city administrator, and I gave it to their planning officer. I said, take a look at that. And that tells you, we have projected growth figures in there. And look at our capacity. See, it's right now, we have capacity right now for the next 5 to maybe 10 years in our schools that we have right here and now. Don't let school capacity say that you can't have development here. That's not the case. But also take a look at the demographics that's in that document. And the demographics is very enlightening about the mixture, especially increase in the Hispanic population in northern Beaufort County. So when we went to the joint city council meeting, between Beaufort and Port Royal, we handed out the community report to everybody and got great feedback. Sitting next to a city council person, and he said, "MedTech, I didn't know what that was. I saw a sign about it. I didn't know it was like that. I didn't know about dual enrollment." And this is just another venue of getting the information out. And I plan to go to the county council, the next county council meeting, and give all those folks one of that master plans. They have nothing like that. The county doesn't have a master plan. They have a map that says this is what the zoning is. But a master plan, they don't have a master plan. And I found out the city of Beaufort doesn't have a master plan. We do. And maybe we, by example, showing them that, they can say, well, maybe we ought to think about doing that as well. So that's too much time I spent on that, but let's just try to set the stage of what we have as a challenge going forward.
So currently, and you've looked at the schedule and made some positive comments on it. So I think this committee is aligned with it. So that's good leadership and to tee it up for all of our members to hear. So thank you for coming, and thank you for sharing that with passion and insight. So much appreciated. So with that, any comments from anyone? Yes, ma'am. Ms. Gordon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate listening to the history, also bringing us forward. Because I remember some years ago, it was said that the area where Wellbranch High School and Wellbranch Middle schools are, that there would be no development. I mean, I see housing. And so my next question is, will there be stores, businesses in that area, because they had where you could only build, I think, every 5 acres or something like that on a house. And I remember when people really digested what that meant, they were not really happy. That's why there was sparks growth and developing in an area. Now you talk about Ladies Island Middle and St. Helena. There's a lot of water between those two places where developers would love to get and develop housing and golf courses. And so don't count out that area. I understand Berkeley, flat. And there's still some land there. But when we look at the children market, that's what concerns me. When I look at the numbers at some of our schools, and they're low. They're low. And then when you look at where the parents are moving, where the grandparents are moving, I think we need to be concerned that when we bring this growth and the children will come, that we're looking at where. We're building a brand new school on Ladies Island. Coosa is fairly. Beaufort High is fairly. But when you look at their elementary schools, other than Coosa, the numbers are low. So how do we get those numbers back up? When we're there, preaching about what we're doing and how we're doing it. Who are we actually targeting? What group of children and families are we really looking at? Because none of them can afford a $400,000 house or $300,000. So parents go where the market is, where they can afford and where their jobs are. So in keeping that in perspective, I'm glad to see that the legislation committee will accept some responsibilities to go forward and attend these meetings and learn what's going on out there, because there's a lot going on, you're right. And we're not feeding this information back to the community the way that we should, in a manner that we should. So I would like to know in what manner are we going to present to the community? I think we should have a script. I shouldn't go out and say one thing and Will say something else, and you say, you know, we should have the same script, the same passion
Great.
for our community and its growth and our children and getting them further, you know, along this educational path. So I'm not concerned about for the next air station of them, but I am concerned where they're going to build their housing.
Yeah.
You know, and how many children they're bringing, and how many will go to school on base, and how many will come out here.
Yeah. You might not know that there's a new development. It's just to the south of Will Branch Middle School.
Mhm.
It's high density.
Yeah.
It's there across the street from that, other side of Trask Highway. They've already platted it for density housing and have gotten approval from the county to build it there. They're right now just going back and forth, like it's going to be the developer for that. So they are going to allow, the county's going to allow that in their comprehensive plan
Mhm.
to have higher density housing in that area next to Trask Parkway, going back to the south.
Now, when you say higher density housing, what does that mean?
It means not housing that needs a septic tank. And a septic tank, you got to have, I think, 2 acre,
3 acres.
and have an acre of land.
At least.
So that's higher density.
Thank you.
Okay, that was an excellent question and heat it up. So that's the type of thing we want to have. Let me go to some of the other board, committee members. Ms. Boatwright, Ms. Hay, or Pastor Gordon.
Hi.
Yes.
Okay, Pastor Gordon, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm totally in agreement with everything that's been said, because a lot of times in the area out there where I live at, we don't get the information as quick as we need to. So this is a very good start by this committee, and I really appreciate that, because that's my area out there between Burton and where Will Branch Middle is. So I'm totally in agreement with this, and I agree with Miss Chloe that us having something to go by, so we don't go on it on our own, go within it on our own. So I'm in total agreement with this, definitely.
Thank you, Pastor Gordon. Ms. Boatwright, you were going to say something, ma'am?
Yep, I don't know how this meeting will progress from this point, but I have one I think this information's interesting. I do wonder sometimes if we are not treading into operations committee when we talk about property and different things. And it makes me wonder, in the past, the legislative committee has worked off of a legislative agenda that's been agreed to by the board. We have positions, and when I look at other school districts, the role of the legislative committee is to bring forward things to the board, so the board votes on their position on those things, and then we work with the legislative delegation to try and accomplish the goals of the board. So what I wonder is if we don't need some sort of mission statement of the legislative committee, some sort of guidance and guardrails, because it's very far ranging at this point. in terms of how we're discussing and you know, discovering and whatnot. But we actually do have an active legislative slate still on our books that's been voted on that I think is pretty out of date. What I would like to do it's in the near future is to actually look at that. I think you've also provided the South Carolina School Boards Association legislative agenda, have that, you know, look at what we already have. And then we really, I think before we can start, you know, really working with any kind of legislators, we need to have the board vote on what our legislative priorities are and what our positions are on these different things. So I'm in favor of what we're doing, but I feel right now my, you know, computational brain needs a little more structure. And I think that that's something I know, I don't know if it's on the agenda for the rest of this meeting, but it's something I think we need to do sooner rather than later. Thank you.
A good point. Let me speak to that. The legislative committee didn't meet all of 2024. And when I went through the topics in 2023, it was very constrained, but that created a reactive posture and mindset. So what we're doing in this iteration is we want to be at the front of the conversation to identify those conversations. And that's what these first two meetings have been about. So you're absolutely right, Ms. Boatwright. It is somewhat a departure, but it's really going from a reactive profile to one where we want to be able to basically outline the conversations. For example, we need to know what our legislators are doing. Who's prescribing what bills? For example, I've already spent 12 hours just going through all the pre-filed bills that were already in the legislative queue. 12 hours. I am not 50% through those. We need to be informed, not just reactive. Let's take the Burton issue. And I do this in private side. You have to get to when those initial conversations are taking place. If you don't, the connection between the builders, the developers, the financiers is already so far along, people have gotten consensus. This is what we're going to do. It's too late then. So Ms. Boatwright is right. We are going to have to bring this before the board and say, here's what we're thinking. But our desire right now is to get the feedback and understanding and suggestions from the entire board and other board members who come in and participate. So it's not a diminution of what has existed before. We're using this as planning time to say, how do we want to act as a committee? And I think the Colonel has teed up some really good outlooks and examples. But we do have to be concerned. Our ultimate raison d'etre for a school district is to educate kids. All right, so we're not straying from that, nor are we straying from having, you know, going through the process. So thank you, Ms. Boatwright.
Can I say one follow-up? I think what would feel a little more comfortable as a committee which serves the board is making sure that we are developing some sort of an instrument that we are getting the board's feedback in a full business session, because that's tradition. You know, I am a big fan of being proactive and not reactive, but we also need to make sure that we represent the voice of the board. So I guess in the next, it'd be great to figure out some way where a survey, something at a work session where we're like, here's the conversations we've been having. What other conversations, you know, should we be having? What are your thoughts on the direction? Because I just, you know, without sort of that structure from the previous meetings, and you're right, legislative committee's been very dormant. And even though it didn't meet in 2024, we still have a legislative slate called 2024, you know, the 2024 legislative slate. So I think it's really, really good that we're doing all this, but I do think we need to have, to make sure that we are representing the interests of all 11 board members in having these conversations and developing our plans. So that, I guess, is kind of where I'm coming from in terms of looking for a little more structure that ties us into the will of the board. And I think that's all I have.
So, okay, that's a good point. And from what this intent is, we believe we're going to provide structures by soliciting feedback from all the committee members. And then we'll go out and absolutely having a survey to solicit input as part the process. Because when we take it before the board, we want to make sure we're calibrated enough that it passes and we don't get overturned. So good point there. Ms. Hay,
She said she'll be right back.
who else is up there? Is that it?
That was it.
Okay, Mr. Smith?
Yes, sir. I have some of those concerns, and also I just wanted to also say something that was stated in this meeting. When I first got on the school board, I was invited to a meeting for Beaufort City. In Beaufort City, the same way how we have how we have that book that tells us the plan in terms of where we're going at. Beaufort City does have a book. They do have a book. They do have that have a book with that on it. I know that I believe that maybe in whether it was in, well, I won't give a specific year, but I do know that I went to an actual workshop where we had a planning where they had different community members, board members, and different things. Because I was Stephen Murray was the mayor at that time, and basically what it was a very strategic plan on where Beaufort City was going at in terms of building the structure and all of that. And I think I was told maybe about a year ago that they had another one because someone asked me where I was and why wasn't I there, because the time when I went there, it was in the old Piggly Wiggly downtown Beaufort in Dick Stewart, I believe in the 303 Associates building. But anyways, so they do have a structured plan to tell them where they're going, how they're going, and when they get there. Now, who they released that to, I'm not sure, because I do know that at one point in time I wasn't part of it. In terms of what that looked like, where you may find that at today, I'm not sure, but I do know that that it wasn't very long a time ago where they had an actual structured plan of where the city of Beaufort was going at. So I am familiar with that. And that's what the Beaufort City. And in terms of the Dowd building,
Mhm.
and us talking about that. We've had that building for a very long time in this district. I think there's some good things go on there. I think it's needs versus wants. There's still a conversation to be had there. I'm not really. I don't really. Dr. John, I said this on record, and I mean, I don't really care about what other people could use it for. I believe that it should be used for our students. Every student, every day is my MO, and I think that if it's catering towards students, then that's what that building should be used for. To me, all money is not good money. So I'll just put that out there. I think that building has been serving the district, and the district has known about that. And for years, we've had some different curves, and I don't think that we should be getting into the business of real estate. Because if you ask me, the real estate agents in this county has really made a shift in Beaufort County. I think that has cost us enough in terms of the growth and development of Bluffton. Because I remember when we first got on the board, we were talking about how fast Bluffton was growing and how fast Bluffton was growing and developing. And we couldn't stop it, and Bluffton wasn't talking about stopping it, and we were catching hell in terms of talking about where are we building schools that put them in the right places and what that looked like. So I think that we want to get in the business of developing and selling, and but I don't mind us being intentional about where we're putting buildings at. But I think we should be careful because we don't want to come across as though we're we becoming a part of the real estate agents business. Now, I think we want to stay cognizant of that. I think that's very important, so that people are comfortable with us, and they know that we are doing the children, that we are in the business of children, and that we're putting them first before everything, children over everything. And in the terms of Ladies Island, I do. Mrs. Gordon spoke so eloquently about that. Ladies Island is definitely growing, and Ladies Island is growing in areas that I think that we may not see, and if we're building buildings, a brand new school, we can't never take the road that, oh, well, we need to put up a new school in this area to cater this area. Because I remember when we were talking about May River and Bluffton High School, when people were on the board at the time, there was a question about adding on to Bluffton High School or building a new building a new school, which would became May River High School. And the last time I checked, we still had area in Bluffton High School that we could add on, and we could build, take that building from being a 2-tier to a 3 or 4-tier high school. And then there was other parts of that area that could be used. So I say that to say this, that we have schools in different places that we still have those opportunities and those options. So we can't get into the business of having several schools because when you look at at other schools, I won't even say our competition. We look at other schools in other counties in terms of Charleston County and in terms of Columbus in Columbia. They have some schools. They may have 6 or 7, 8, 9 assistant principals, and they may have large buildings. And they're 5A and your bigger A schools because they have larger buildings. And so therefore, when you talk about competing, to some degree, we have to start competing at that level too, because that's also bring a greater return in terms of what students and what products you may produce in your city, who could come back and help you and donate and do different things in your community. We're talking about building, so we can't look within one kaleidoscope look in terms of what we're looking for. We have to look at a granular look at very big to very wide to what we're really looking for, and being intentional about it, and not just under one scope.
Okay.
And so I think that those are also some things that I just want to bring to this conversation that I think that could help us move into a into wherever this committee is going. But those are things that I want to put there. And then in the Burton area, I do know that they can have, even also another thing, we talk about permits and them having autonomy to build. Hell, and you can find out right now, selling the golfer thought he had the autonomy to build, but he had so many stumbling blocks to where he thought he'd been building maybe about 4 or 5 years ago, and he's still in the building. So you can get those permits, but those permits don't allow you to actually build, depending on what actually you're trying to build and where you're trying to move, because you can have permits for 6 and 7 and 20 years, and the county have given permits from 20 years ago that people still have permits out there that that they're not doing nothing with. So
Okay.
so we can't get caught up on those.
Okay, thank you all for that. Now, what I've heard in the last 3 conversations are valid points, not contesting those. What we're doing in the last meeting and this meeting is what's known as ideation. We're trying to provide an environment where anybody can say anything, and that gives us more idea. If I'm going to, just stick with what I've always said, I'm not listening. And we want everybody to listen to the other person. But then, just like Ms. Boatwright about what the policy has been, great. But we need as a team to go through and say, what are we going to recommend? And that's what this is about. So all your ideas are good. You made a good one, Ms. Gordon. Again, I said it, the raison d'etre, the reason you have a public school system is to educate the kids. That's where the starting point. If I'm doing a business, I look at the customer and say, how do I serve that customer? What facilities, supply chain, financing do I need to do that? We're at the start of that. And we're just trying to make sure everybody feels comfortable sharing a outlier idea, so we can come up with something that we can take to the board. You're right about Burton. Both of you right about Burton, right? It can go either way. But I appreciate the passion with which you have it, your ideas. But we're going to come to a point where we have a consolidated position paper that says, here's what we want to do, here's how we want to do it, here are the tools that we recommend. But from a legislative point of view, we need to be out there, so we're getting this information, like you just mentioned, and others, right? I attended the meeting at the Beaufort City Council. You meet and learn so much from just being there. And people will talk to you. They're good to see us. And the school district, knock on wood, kudos to all of you, has such a really good image. And so they really are willing to sit and talk. So just want to say, that's my way of saying thank you for all the comments so far. Let's see, is Miss Hay back?
I am. I'm just
Okay.
soaking in everybody's commentary and I don't have anything. I don't like being the echo chamber, so I don't want to repeat everything everyone else said. So I'm just listening and soaking it all in and waiting to see how we move forward. Thank you.
Yeah, and today is to actually get all these ideas and protocols and concepts out in the table. So that's why you don't see anything, any type of reports or anything else other than when the capital, they at the capital. We want this free flowing, all right? So any other comments on that particular section? If not, then let me move to the next one, which starts with discover and share trends, actions, legislation, etc. with the committee. So what are your thoughts about, in addition to what Colonel Guy, the chair of the board, has said, what are your thoughts about how do we actually show up and capture this, discover these trends? Pastor Gordon? Is he still on?
Yes, I'm still on. I'm still on.
You on first base, sir, so.
Oh man. I think that, and I think we kind of went over it in the last meeting. Kind of going in our communities where we're at. And then just talking about mine, connecting with the local churches there, connecting with I know a couple of nonprofits out there that's working our community pretty hard, and I'm already in some of those entities. So I just think that basically working our local spots and stuff, and making sure that we're transparent. And I guess this basically what we're talking about, trying to be transparent, because I mentioned earlier that a lot of things have gone on in our community during the years and be like, wait a minute, how did that happen? How did they rezone that for to put high density houses there? And Colonel Guy was right out there in Seabrook. I remember some of the meetings that was held to change the zoning. And the weird part about it was they didn't call the meetings at 5 and 6 o'clock in the evening when everybody got off. These meetings were held like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So when you walk up in the building, there's only a handful of people in there from the community, that say yay or nay. And Colonel Guy was right. The zoning changed, with or without us actually being there or in the know of what's going on. So I think this is very important to be in the know. Definitely.
Okay, who else is okay? Okay, Ms. Boat. Who?
Ms. Hay and Ms. Boat, right?
Okay, so Ms. Hay and Ms. Boatwright have spoken. Everybody has had a chance to speak on this. Let me just say one thing about the clandestine meetings, which Mr. Pastor Gordon just alluded to. We would like for each of you, and if you have time now, you got a piece of paper in front of you and those online, write down what type of contacts should you have to pull this off. So Pastor Gordon just mentioned, right, churches. What other types of organizations in your area, maybe your district, that you can actually say, here's an organization, and what we would like is to gather a list of those organizations that potentially are where you might have a contact. Is that okay? Pastor Gordon, Ms. Hay, Ms. Boatwright, is that okay?
That's okay with me. It's Pastor Gordon.
Okay,
Sure.
please. Oh, thank you, Ms. Boatwright. Looks like Ms. Hay is just.
Yep, I'm
come
here.
off of- Okay, so what you can do is you can actually, can they send it theirs to you?
Email it to.
Yeah, you can email them to Ms. Cushingberry and think broadly without constraints, right?
So what are we doing?
You just saying, if you want to go out and build your influence and help the school district develop its legislative connection points, what would you go to? So just think about that right now. It doesn't have, Colonel gave an example of how we can turn the legislative committee into a support for where our schools go, where the kids are going to be, and then we support that. So that's one way. But what else? What other items do you think of? Connections, organizations. Should I throw some out to help everybody get started? What about the Divine Nine? Okay,
Of course.
we got our consigliere to raise the hand. Would you like to write some? Yeah, okay. All right, so you could list that as one of your contact points. Mr. Smith, I see him all over everywhere, right? BNC Coffee. You want to put that one? Right? So all of a sudden you begin to see where you have so many connections, you don't even think about them. And what we want to do is break away from the traditional path, right? Just the legislators. When we go to the legislators, we want to have input and intel that's grounded in the community so we can say, hey, we've spoken to several people in my network, several organizations, and we can politely engage our legislators, not offensive. So for me, should I name mine? Just a few? Okay. So one of the things is I'm president of a POA. And if you live in your community, go down your street, your preachers, your doctors, your teachers, right? Any group like that, any person like that, that you can say, I'm in the school district and you saw the community report, I have a bundle of those in the back of my trunk and I hand them out. Now, what this committee might end up doing is actually creating a legislative one, as Ms. Boatwright was mentioning, that this says, here's how we're taking it forward. So that's one. Anybody want another one? Suggestion? Okay, what about your religious association? Yeah. Boy, that's a powerful one, right? And Pastor and Ms. Boatwright, Ms. Hay, you hear us?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes.
Okay, good. And Ms. Boatwright, if she's there, okay. So just stop and think, and you see the colonel looks like he has about 10 so far. So what other organizations are you in? You don't have to say it, but just think about it. Right? I'm waiting for you to say something.
Not just,
He goes all the way over to Bluffton
it just.
and helps
churches.
start a new organization.
Churches,
Nancy, talking. Go ahead.
I mean,
You're like the mayor of St. Helena and Ladies Island.
I wish,
Yes, he is.
Yes, he is. But we're just trying to show it's just stop and think and just note all the organizations to which you belong. You will find that is just a tremendous amount of people you have influence with. We just want to equip you with a message that's researched, that is within protocols, that you can then help us develop a message that goes to our legislators in a positive way. We're not talking about conflict. You don't win against elected officials with conflict. Fair enough? Pastor, I guess you three are gonna send your list in to Ms. Cushingberry.
I'm sending mine to her.
To who?
Yes, I'll send my list to her.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, the next item on the front at the bottom of this page is where we would need on a continuing basis to discuss critical and important items, as Ms. Boatright mentioned, for forwarding to the board. Some of those things may not be time constrained, right? So they can put them at the back. Others may be. And so we want to sort of mobilize and come with a recommendation from this committee for the board to consider. Those may need to be quick. Okay. So, you know that the Colonel has also mentioned subscriptions.
The two that have been given is Post and Courier and Ed Week. From Ms. Boatright. So those
And what's the other one?
Ed Week.
Oh, Ms. Boatright, Ed Week? Oh, Education Week. Okay, Ed Week, and then Post Courier. That's a good one, because we need more type of things that talk about education and what have you.
Post and Courier has a special newsletter. It is free. That's called Education Lab. That's good. But I also think that they're really doing a holistic view of the state, as well as concentrating, like they'll have a Beaufort specific section. So you can kind of get a sense of the political lay of the land.
Outstanding. Outstanding. Any other people have media? I mean, that you think should be included in terms of that? Important actions that are developing? Okay, well, let me share one with you. I mentioned that I have gone through 50% of the pre-filed House bills. And there's one proposed by a legislator that is proposing that the Constitution of the state of South Carolina be overturned to allow public money to unabashedly fund private and charter schools. Anybody else heard of that? You've heard of it. Okay, it's pre-filed. Anybody know? Don't mention the name. Anybody know the name of the legislator that's proposing that?
Shannon, oh, you don't want me to say it?
You can say it.
Oh, I thought you said don't say it. I mean, Shannon is promoting it.
He's promoting. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ms. Boatright. Sorry.
No, I was going to say Shannon Erickson is supporting it coming out of the House Education Committee.
Who else?
Well, Jeff Bradley as the head of K through 12.
One other.
I'm going to assume Wes Newton.
You got it. That's a trilogy. Now, who in the community knows that?
A lot of people, actually.
A lot of people, but then a lot of people that support public education have no idea. Those connections we just talked about, churches, Divine Nine, right? Other groups, BNC Coffee, do they know it? And that's the reality that we face if we're not informed. And that's all we're trying to say. Make sense? Make sense? Okay. If no further conversation there, and I didn't mean to talk this much. The next point is discuss potential areas of responsibility for committee members. You heard the Chair Guyer talk about levels of government, federal, state, local. We'd like for you to also share with us if there's a particular level of government you'd like to pursue. Everything is local. I can't remember which politician said all politics is local, but we all should have local connections in our district. But are there others? Do you have a special relationship with a state official or even a federal official? That's the type of thing we want you to consider. And under that particular item, you see, we always end up with move to the full board. So we want to have our own conversation like this. Uninhibited, candid, bringing new information that others may not have, done politely, professionally, but then, coming to a vote and moving it forward. Questions or comments? Questions or comments for those online?
I'm good. Just pass the button. I'm good.
Okay. Ms. Hay or Ms.
Yep,
Boatright?
I'm fine as well. I think I speak for Mrs. Boatright and I both when, I mean, this is something we do on a pretty regular basis. So I think we're both comfortable with this, but, yeah, moving along.
Sounds good. Okay, any further conversation on the agenda for today? Because we do have a couple more things to talk about. One is a solicitation of key items for next legislative committee, which is really on March 12th. So on all of our agendas, you're gonna see, we're gonna put the date and time of the next meeting on this agenda. So just look at the bottom and you'll always be apprised of when we're gonna meet. All right? And then the visit to the Capitol. So that's right here. That's April 9th, and we hope the whole contingent can go. Because we want to show and force. And the legislators have been very, very solicitous in meeting with us in the last two times I've been. Not everybody, yes, ma'am.
Sorry. Still at work. So is this the one in April? Is that the South Carolina School Board Association day at the Capitol?
Yes.
Okay.
And there's Ms. Boatright, I don't know if you can see this, but there's a flyer. Yeah, it's on the screen. I'm sorry.
Yep, I see that. I just want to be clear that this was not a legislative thing, that this is something by the South Carolina School Board Association, because that's a little bit, those are kind of two different ideas. Yep.
Okay. All right, and then future topics. So you guys, we've requested politely some homework assignments for you, that you actually identify groups that you can contact, people, and you can keep that discreet. You don't have to say the name, but share with us the position so we can assemble basically a grouping of how wide is our reach, because our reach is going to be very important. And we want to make sure we're going into all segments and demographics. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
I'm
ma'am.
sitting here thinking, and I want to be sure, because I'm feeding off of something Ms. Boatright said.
Mhm.
I want to make sure that we're not becoming political.
No.
This is not a political position. This is a legislative committee. Because when I approach people, I don't want to appear as though I'm being political, because I'm not. And I want to make sure that's not what we're becoming. We're just broadening or basically establishing ourselves, our committee, for certain compositions of what we think we should be doing.
Yes.
Be effective. So I just want to be sure that's what I'm hearing. I don't want to, because people will think that you're trying to be political, trying to make a statement. And that's why I was asking for a script to make sure that we're not seen as being political.
Absolutely correct. And please recall that I said we can't go to legislators with a negative persona, because they can use that against us. I'm not saying they're that type of people. What we're talking about is we can't be clueless. We have to know who's doing what so we know how to approach them. That's all it is.
Okay.
So that if a legislator has a particular hot button, we're not pressing that. But if they have something that, maybe they want the school district in general to look at things, maybe a new course, we should be able to bring that back and share it with the educational people and say, hey, here's some feedback. So it's a bi-directional flow. Just trying to make sure we're on. Yes, sir.
In the past, we've had a legislative luncheon where we invited legislators. Seems like maybe this committee would take the lead on trying to figure out the best time and date and place to do that.
The teacher forum does that.
Pardon me?
The teacher forum does that. They do the legislative luncheon through the teacher forum.
Well, it hasn't been very successful then.
We've tried to do, the board has also invited the legislators like for dinner. The board has invited them to lunch. The board has tried to do a reception as well. And it's been about as successful as the teacher's performance lunch. So,
Last one we had two.
Right.
Tom Davis and one person who was running for a position, wasn't even a sitting member.
So if I could sort of just speak to that, if the legislators know that we will be contacting them in a positive way, even when we don't need anything, it changes that dynamic. You know, so that's really what we're encouraging, to have a relationship. So even when there's a disagreement, it's not terminal, right? In terms of that relationship. A year ago, current chair at that point in time asked board members to go out, and we met with two of them, and two of them were, very much opposed to what we were saying, but the friendship had existed before. One of which I had helped his daughter when she helped. Let me finish that. One of which the daughter of a legislator went to California, and since I had lived and worked in California, the friendship was deep enough. They say, "Hey, can you help identify places for her to live?" Right. So that's what may be politically different, but we don't talk that. We don't ever talk politics. Don't even acknowledge it, right? So that's what we're looking for. We're looking for that sweet spot where we can amicably disagree, but we don't damage the relationship. So that's a good point. I'm not trying to be political at all. Any other? Yes.
I was looking forward to hear too, my background of the State House. In terms of when they have education committee meetings and stuff like that, I think it would be good too, or for us if we're looking we're looking in advance to see what agendas they're putting out, to see where we might be up there or we might want to take part into that. I think that's a good start for us as well, because I think it's very important that we get to some conversations on the front side versus the back side, because right now they are really I was just talking to someone yesterday. They are really got some people up there in Columbia right now who are really drilling down the public fund into the private sector, and then this is the beginning of it. It's going to get the net is dropped, but it's going to get wide. From what I understand, it's supposed to get real wide. So I think that us going down there, or some members actually partaking in that conversation at the State House will be very advantageous to us, and help us out and give us some legs to stand on moving forward, because in terms of, we do have the Power Six up there right now, and so having the Power Six up there it would be a good movement to having that good relationship, but also seeing them and talking to them, and make sure that they know what our no's are, what our asks are, with the soft, hey, be mindful that when you do this, that it does affect us in this way and that way. So I think that's very. I just think it's something good for us. That's what for that. I'm kind of talking along, but saying a lot of stuff. But yeah, I'm sure you have the gist of what I want to say.
No, that's a good thing, because those are the types of things that are on the table right now.
Yes, sir.
So we want to do that. Any others? Okay, so do all of you have this?
they were given to you all when.
Slide it down.
Shannon says.
She knows.
Said-
Shannon-
oh, you
Shannon-
have this, yes.
Yeah, Shannon.
All I saw from afar was the brightness.
For sure.
Yeah.
And
You don't want to spend money.
so for those that are online, this is what we're looking at. And it's the 2024 South Carolina Legislature. It is full of any information really that you want, except the bills. And we have the link I'll share. You can send the link out so you actually can go to the website and look which bills are in what queue and where they have been referred to a specific committee, who's heading that committee. And so please, if you will, take that. So the two things that we're asking you to be prepared to share before the March 12th meeting, if you're so kind, is one, making sure that you share the organization's people that you can actually contact. The second thing is to review your legislative manual, which is the 2024 South Carolina Legislative Manual, and familiarize yourself with the people in there. And in the interim, I will complete the review of the pre-filed bills, and we'll put that on the agenda for March 12th, so we're compliant with all transparency and open requirements. And then we can actually look and see what bills are already in the queue. And then after that, we can continue updating those bills. Where are they now? Many of them, most of them will die.
And we're talking about educational bills, right?
I have screened it, that all bills are there.
Right,
But I've screened it for ones that affect education.
okay.
Yeah.
That's what be sure.
All right, yes, sir.
Suggestion, consider having this committee invite one of our delegation to attend one of the committee meetings.
Sure. Not an issue.
And,
We only have two.
well, no, we got,
more.
Six.
No, we got.
Next.
You look at Bluffton, look at North
I'm
Bend,
sorry.
yeah, Hilton Head.
I'm thinking.
yeah,
Okay.
And currently you're talking about at the state level.
yeah,
Yeah.
yes. And say, you know, we have a committee meeting every month. You know, invite them when they're not in session. And out ahead of time and say, we have a committee meeting, would you like to come and talk to the legislative committee?
And present.
I would think they would like to do that. Small, intimate kind of thing.
Sounds good. We have it down as act tonight. We'll go forward with that. Anything else for the good of the order? Wow. That's 78 minutes. That's darn good. Okay, Ms. Hay, Pastor Gordon, Ms. Boatwright, anything else for the good of the order?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, put your helmet on and
Not at
strap it
this time,
down.
thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, motion to adjourn.
So adjourn.
Pastor Gordon, Ms. Hay or Ms. Boatwright, will you second?
By unanimous consent.
Oh, by unanimous consent, works for me.